All right. Hello, everyone. So, welcome to the second virtual Mule session. So, this is all about automating Mule deployments with GitHub and Jenkins. Tonight's our speaker is Philip Okadis. You might have seen him on forums and all other places. So, he's a integration professional for MuleSoft. He works at Twitter and good things. One more thing about him is if you are planning to join MuleSoft Connect this year, he'll be one of the speakers. So don't miss to chat with him at that time. So with that said, let me hand it over to Philip. And okay, so Philip, all stage is yours.
All right. Hey everyone. I'm still getting familiar with the platform, so I hope you can hear me and see me. I want to say thank you to Manik for inviting me for this second meetup. I'm really excited to share some of the experience I have regarding setting up the CI/CD pipeline with Mule or for Mule development. So I will start presenting because I have some slides as usual. All right. So the title for this meetup is automating Mule deployments with GitHub and Jenkins pipelines. And this is the agenda we have for today. So we will have a brief introduction. So we will discuss some things about CI and CD, and we will be exploring or talking about the tools that we need to use to implement these pipelines. And we will also have a demo time. This is very important and very exciting for me because we will see this pipeline in action. So and we will also have some time for QA. Okay, so as Manik said, my name is Felipe Ocadis. I've been an integration engineer for a while, and I started using Mule a few years ago. I've been doing a lot of development as well as maintenance, so I'm also familiar with this kind of DevOps concepts like CI and CD. So the audience or the target for this meetup is for Mule developers who would like to learn how to set up these pipelines using Jenkins and GitHub for all your Mule development. So okay, let's start talking about CI/CD. I don't have much text because I want to really talk about this kind of concept. So the idea of continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment is based on the on top of the automation. So that means that every time we are building any piece of software, we should we should build that using automatic processes because it's easier for us because we can save a lot of time and we can build software with better quality. So see, if we have like automated testing, we can make sure that every time we are adding new features to a piece of software, we can make sure that it's going to work as expected, right? So then in this world, in the world of continuous or CI/CD world, we have like three different categories. The first one and the simplest one is continuous integration, and the idea behind that that methodology or whatever you want to call it is just to automate building and testing. So this is very important, because as a developers, we will be adding, or we will be updating our applications constantly, because software is evolving, software is live, so we will be modifying it. So, and as long as we have this automated testing in place, so we can make sure that everything is going to work. And then we have the second phase is the continuous delivery. So this is used to automate the building and the deploying to lower environments. So that means that once we build and we have like a feature in place, so we can deploy that to the lower environments automatically. So we can test the application or the feature, and once we have or we have passed those tests, so we can deploy to production manually. And then we can do at the end of that phase the smoke test, so just to validate that everything is correct. And then the third level of automation is the continuous deployment. So that means that we can automate the whole thing. Since we develop like a feature branch in our GitHub repo, testing it in the local environment, so building it, deploying it to lower environments, and then we can also automate the step to deploy to production. And then in order to implement this kind of pipelines, it's important to know the actors or the tools that we have in place in order to be more effective. And the cool thing about these tools is that we can really focus on the important things for developers, which is developing new features, right? We should not spend like much time like deploying artifacts, especially if we are adding like very small changes in a short period of time. So we will be spending like, I don't know, a lot of time just deploying, testing, validating. So that's the idea about this. So I will start with AnyPoint Studio. Since we all are Mule developers, we know this tool. There's nothing special to add because it's the main dev tool that we have in place. It's a Eclipse-based tool. So and we can just drag and drop the message processors in order to build Mule applications. So another important part here is AnyPoint Platform. We use it to deploy the Mule applications. So that and the cool thing about this is that it supports on-prem and cloud deployments. So that means that we can integrate our CICD pipeline with AnyPoint Platform. I mean, from our Jenkins instance, we can just deploy directly, no matter if we have like a Cloudhub environment or we have on-prem. So, and the cool thing about this is that we can integrate it with Maven. Obviously, we also have Maven. I mentioned that in the previous slide. This is just a Java tool to build Java applications. It's based on the principle of convention over configuration. That means that we can like generalize or having the most important elements in an application, like the source code, the additional resources like configuration files or this kind of thing. So Mule is not that different because it's built on top of Java. So that means that we can rely on Maven to build our Mule applications. So in that regard, so MuleSoft has spent like good amount of time like developing tools that we can use to build the applications. All right, so now we also have Git. This is a very important tool because we can track every single change that we are making in the code. We can create branches, we can create releases, and we can play around, and we can have every single change track in this tool. This is interesting because I attended a class about Git under the hood, and I remember that the teacher said that Linus Torvalds created this tool in like 48 hours or something like that, and it's pretty cool because Linux uses Git to track the changes. So the interesting thing about this is that it is distributed, so that means that doesn't matter who is like the source of truth. So as long as we are sharing the code, so we will be, or we will have like a consistent version of the code. So, and obviously we have like a lot of tools and plugins. And now we have GitHub. This is pretty cool because it's nothing but a Git hosted solution. So it's just a Git on the cloud. The cool thing about this tool is that we have like additional features that are not part of Git out of the box, like pull request. So this is a pretty cool feature to do code reviews, to analyze the code, and then we can also like have our own copy of any important repo. So maybe you don't have permissions to work on, I don't know, Apache Maven that it's in GitHub, but then you can fork it or create a copy on your GitHub account, and then you can create a pull request to add some features in Maven. So after the people that is maintaining the main repo, so if they approve your request, you can have like your own code running or being part of the project that you like. So GitHub also has like a wiki page, so that means that we can create documentation for the project there, and we can also have like a issue tracking tool. This is not as robust as Jira or any other tool, but this is pretty cool because we can track issues, but we can also use it to create user stories or create features, enhancements, fixes, and we can track it there. So this is pretty cool too. And then we have Jenkins at the end, not less important because this is the bridge to connect the SEM, to build, test, and deploy. This tool is open source, it's Java based, and then it has like a bunch of plugins just to do some interesting things. So now let's go to do the demo time. So I will, let me exit this thing. I will go pretty quick to the steps I follow to set up the whole thing. So the first thing is to download Jenkins. Because it's a very easy process. So you go to Jenkins, to the download page. It's just a matter to download the WAR file. And then what I did for this example is also downloading Tomcat. So once I downloaded the binaries, the only thing that I did is copying the WAR file into the Tomcat web apps folder, and I started Tomcat, and then Jenkins was running. So I'm inside the Apache Tomcat directory. So I use Tomcat 905, and then inside the web apps folder, so I just drop the Jenkins WAR file. So when I started the Tomcat service, so it automatically installed Jenkins. So we need to follow like some single steps to set up the credentials. It's a very straightforward process. And then once we have the Jenkins service in place, so what we need to do is to install some plugins. And this is pretty cool because it's very easy to work with. So the only thing that we need to add here, and this is important for for these pipelines is to install the Maven plugin. Git plugin is also important. GitHub. And that's pretty much it. And then once we have the plugins in place, it's just like select a checkbox with the plugins that you want to install, click on install, and Jenkins will restart automatically, and then you will have all those plugins available. So once you are there, what you can do is create a new item. So then you can select the kind of the project that you want to create. In this case, I will create a Maven project. So, and I have this Jenkins job in place. So, and we have some things on the left side. So the first part or the important part is the build now. This is to trigger the Jenkins job. And depending on the goals that you set for that job, it will be trigger, and it will maybe just building, or maybe just building and deploy, or you can build, test, deploy, and whatever you want. So and then we have this part, the configure page. So this is used to set up the way that we are gonna connect to GitHub to get the source code to build. So this is important because since Jenkins is the bridge, we need to connect to the code to get it to build and deploy. So we have this section here where we will add where we add the URL to get the source code. And then in this part, this is also important because we need to choose the Maven goals that we want to execute when the job is triggered. So in this case, I will have clean package, install, and mule deploy. So I will explain that later on. So this is just to explain and to walk through the way that we should set up this this job. So the second part of the demo, which is also important, is GitHub. So I'm going to log into the account where I have this small app. The intention of this API is just to connect to one of the endpoints in GitHub API, just to get the list of public repos for any given user. So so what we have now, or we have here, is the source code for that feature. So what I did here, now jumping on to AnyPoint Studio, is I clone the code, because this is just like the initial draft, so we can browse with the changes that I have made here. So this is like the initial draft where I set up the repo, and it's nothing there. So, and I create like the skeleton of the application, which includes the POM XML, some dependencies, and the files that AnyPoint Studio generates every time I create a new app. And then my stakeholder added a couple of issues which are enhancements for this for this API. So he added this task, that's add Maven plugin to allow deployment with ARM, and then add plugin for MUnit and code coverage. So what I did here, or which is the typical way to add new features, is creating a feature branch in our local repo. So what I did here is, once I clone the repo and I have it here in my laptop, so I created a new feature branch. So, and in order to do so in Git, so I just need to type git checkout b, and then a convention that I have seen and I started liking it is adding your username slash and then the name of the feature or the issue that you are working on. So in this case is 1. If I go to GitHub, so I can see that this is my issue number 1. So I'm going to name my branch in that way. And now I started working in the implementation, which is silly, but it's pretty cool to go through the whole process. So what I did here is I added HTTP endpoint that is going to return like a string. And I also added a test case for this string. So I'm going to assert that. And this is the only thing that this feature includes. Something important that I want to add for this project is the configuration. In order to make it work and in order to be able to deploy your application from Jenkins, you need to select the right plugins and dependencies in your project. For this particular case, I used Mule 3.9 on-prem. And let me go through the plugins because this is very important. In this case, I have this plugin. This is important because it's used to package the project. And the second one, this is pretty cool too, and it's like a relatively new plugin and not very used or popular. It's used to do the deployments. Mule Maven plugin, it's very powerful because we can deploy our applications no matter if they are standalone or if you are using an agent or whatever thing is. You can use that. And the last one, and not less important, the MUnit plugin. So obviously this is used to test the code. So when you add, hey, sorry.
Sorry, can you zoom in a little bit on your screen?
Yeah, sure. I don't know how to do it here. Let me try it. No. Any idea? I think it's preference, right? I mean, source.
I think it may be font. Search for font.
Yeah. Wait. Let's do. Oh, there you go. Let's try with this guy. 14. Better now? Maybe 16?
Maybe make it bigger, and I think 20 should be good.
I have 18. I can give you 18.
Yeah, I think that's better than the earlier. Thanks.
Okay, sorry about that. So, okay, so we have this first plugin just to keep the structure of the file and to build it, to package it. We have this guy that's going to help us to deploy. And the last guy is going to help to test. So the dependencies, I try to reduce the number of dependencies we have because every time you create a new project from AnyPoint Studio, Studio will add some dependencies that might not be used, and this is just like a personal preference because I don't like to have like a huge POM if I'm not gonna use those dependencies. And another idea I found, like I think I saw it on Twitter. So if we have like a parent POM where we can have like all the common dependencies, and then for the child projects we have just the necessary ones, that would reduce the number of lines in this repo. But anyways, so I added these features because if we look at the original code in Git, there's still the older plugins. Okay? We don't use this guy, and we don't have the Codehouse, Mojo, so we don't have munit. So these are my local changes. So what I'm gonna do is after I finish my development, I want to do this. I want to run a test or the testing that I have here. Mm. Test is running, pretty cool. Pass the test. So which is what I typically do when I do my local development. So another cool thing about this is that I can test my code from the terminal. So I ran Maven test to run the test from terminal. So I can see that the one test was evaluated and it passed. So obviously the test doesn't do any special thing, just like asserting the string that, or the payload that the HTTP endpoint is returning. Another cool thing is that once I run the test, I can see like a small mark here that says that the code was covered by the test. So if we have time, we can talk about coverage too. But anyways, once I have this, and I can say, okay, this code is ready for testing. So what I do is git status. So, and I need to add the new files that I need to push to the GitHub repo. So I will add, in this case, POM.xml. And source. Whoop. I don't want these guys. They're Mule and wrapper. So I will add these changes, or I will track these changes in my repo, and I will push them to GitHub. There you go. So I'm doing this because the branch that I created, the local branch, is not in my GitHub repo. So I need to run this command, git push -u with the remote branch I want. So cool. So now I will go to GitHub, and I see this new change here. So this is the commit for this guy. So the next step is to build a pull request. So the pull request will allow me to review the code and the changes that I'm trying to merge. In this case, is into master. So the typical flow that we follow for developing a new feature is going to different branches depending on the flow that you want to follow. In this case, we will go directly through the from the feature branch to the master branch, just to release to production, because we are cowboys, right? So not recommended, by the way. So I will add testing added, and I will add some comments here like, hey, I added test cases and updated the configuration to deploy to runtime manager. So I will create a pull request. Right, and then we can go to the files that I change, and we can analyze the code. It's like, okay, that guy changed the name of the artifact, doesn't matter, that's fine. And he also added this munit test case that are not in the previous version. So we go through the code and we can just like review the changes. So in this case, it's just me, but I can say, oh, pretty cool code. Right, I have everything here. So now I can see that this file was added, new test suite. Okay, it's like, okay, I will review the changes and I can approve after it. Oh, so I will skip this step because I'm the one that I am developing, testing, validating, and approving. So that I will merge the code. Which is great. So another thing that I want to do here is going to Jenkins. So I tried to build that before I added the latest changes to my repo. So obviously that failed. So it tried to build and it failed. So now I want to talk pretty quick about the way that it's configured, and because this is very important. Once you have your Jenkins job in place, so it should point to any specific branch. So that means that every time I build this job, it's going to look into GitHub, and then it's going to get the code from that specific branch. This is very useful because we can have jobs for any particular environment, and depending on the target, we can maybe just build. We can build and test, or we can build, test, maybe install some dependencies if we are creating libraries instead of applications that will be deployed. So we can just build it and install it in the binary repo. So now let's build this thing. So it's running the test, which is pretty cool. Cool, it passed. And now we need to go to the last part of the of the tools that we have in place. So I'm logging into my AnyPoint Platform account. I created like a trial account. So and then from here, I can manage my local runtime. So what I have here, let me open it. So I have a Mule runtime running here. So and I added it to my servers in my AnyPoint Platform account. So in order to do so, what I need to do is going to Runtime Manager, and I need to choose a environment. In this case, I use Sandbox. And when I want to create or to manage one server here, I need to click here, and then I will see the command and I need to run in my local runtime to connect it to AnyPoint Platform. Once it's connected, we will see the server here, and then we can manage it. We can manage the server, and then we can see the applications that are running there. In this case, just to test the app, so I will do this. I will do a curl. There you go. We can see the output here. So for this case, this is just the test, but the idea is that we can create feature branches to really connect to GitHub, download the code, and generate the output that we expect, like a list of the public repos for any GitHub account. So let me check the time pretty quick. Okay, I see one question. Go there. So I see a question. Our AnyPoint platform is on-prem. Will the same plugin for deployment work for on-prem ARM? Yes, and this is what I have here. So in this terminal, what you can see, where is that window? There you go. This guy. This is a local runtime that I downloaded from the MuleSoft site. It's running locally. And then when you go to your AnyPoint platform, you can create that server from there. When you add a server, this is pretty cool. So you copy this guy, then you go to and then we have this command there, AMT setup. So we can, oh, I lost the change. Copy this guy, we run it from here, and then this is going to register our local server, or, well, obviously, if that's a server, if you have like a virtual machine running on your data center, so you can do the same step. So did that answer your question? But yeah, basically, yes, you can use the same plugin. Okay, following the conversation is AnyPoint is not on-prem, it's cloud-based. Okay, okay. I think this is something that maybe you can talk to your account executive. What I know is that, or what you can do is connect from your on-prem server to AnyPoint platform. But if you have like a very strict security in place in your data center, or or your servers. So what you can do is you can ask MuleSoft, and then they can have like an on-prem AnyPoint platform. But I have heard that this is not recommended. Um, there's a question, Manika, if audio can be enabled.
Uh,
Cool.
no, unfortunately. So I can answer one thing for I can add one point to what Philip mentioned. So the ARM that you have on-prem, if you look at the Mule deploy plugin that he showed, there is a configuration on that part. So when you specify that your target is ARM, there is an additional parameter. There is an additional parameter where you can specify an URI for your ARM, which by default it points to the anypoint.mulesoft.com. And if you have something else, let's say like xyz dot anypoint.xyz.com, you can put that URI there and configure it. So I would say it should be possible for you to configure this particular plugin and point it to your on-prem ARM server. Does that help?
So I'm highlighting that line. So, or in this fragment, so we can set up what Manik said. So we can specify the URL. Let me go to the. Let
Yeah,
me find
Philip,
that.
there after environment sandbox, you can add a parameter like URI, and its default value is anypoint.mulesoft.com.
Yeah, I think I have the. I can get the parameter. URI, right? You said URI. Okay, I'm highlighting that line. But that would work only if you have like on-prem AnyPoint platform. Thanks, Manik, for the link. Okay, I think we are good with the demo. This was pretty quick, and but this is important to show how we can integrate these kind of tools to automate the deployment. So obviously there are more things that we can do here, like we can also manage the credentials, because it's not recommended to obviously to push the credentials to the GitHub repos. Uh, so, and then we can also work with Jenkins to manage multiple properties depending on the environment. So let's say if we have like a job to deploy to production, we might inject the credentials for the production environment from there. I mean, we can do pretty cool things with Jenkins. Yes, I see the question. Can we see the recordings of this later? Yes. So there's a YouTube link that Manik will share at the end of the meetup. So that would be it from me. So let's have some time for QA. So we already started, but yeah, let's keep talking about this. So Manik and I had like a very nice conversation about the how this kind of integration is very powerful, because we can spend time just developing things. So once you push the changes from your local repo, how this kind oh, I was able to hear something. Okay, I see the question. Any suggestion for handling the major minor version of the deployable archive that is getting created by Jenkins? Yes, there's a good website. Let me see if I can find it. Semantic versioning. So sember.org. This is cool because you can have like the guideline to define your version numbers. So I use this as reference. But then regarding Jenkins to help to define the versions and the releases, so we have the Maven release plugin, so which is used to define the version that we want to release. So let's say when we are building the job for a lower environment, so we might use like a snapshot version, which means that we will be deploying changes to the same version. So that means that if you have like a snapshot version, that does not mean that it's the same code that or you're seeing like a consistent version. But when you are building from Jenkins to deploy to production, you might use the release plugin to define the final version. And then when you deploy to AnyPoint Platform, you would see something like this. Let me go to the applications. And then we can see the version here.
I think I can add one point to it.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So one of the thing we usually do is you have 1.0.0 version of that code, or in lower environment you might have 1.0.0 dash snapshot version for it. And in lower environment we usually build applications multiple times. So what we do in Jenkins is we append the Jenkins build number as a B and then the build number. So what that helps us is every time you do a Jenkins build or you do a snapshot build, your every zip file always have a unique number at the end, which helps you to track back the code or track back the build which created that application. So it helps when you are really looking into issues and you want to find out, okay, what source code I was using at that time. So those unique build numbers in the application name would help you to track it back to original source code.
So I also can add, I also have seen places where the someone add the build number to the version. So if we go to Jenkins, let me go to the job. So it's Jenkins creates like a consecutive number.
Yeah. Maybe Philip, you are sharing the different page.
Oh, it's a
Oh, yeah,
little
now
bit
I see
slow.
that.
I'm looking at the video. Okay, there you go. So that's the build number. So we can also add that version to the final version, and then when we deploy that, so we can link the artifact version to the Jenkins build. So that means if someone wants to validate that the job was built correctly, you can go to Jenkins and validate that. And then I see another question. How do you add that build number to the zip version in Jenkins? What number, the Jenkins version or the one that Manik was talking about?
I think it is for a build number. And the way, Philip, I can answer that one. So the way you do it, Philip, can you switch to the pom.xml maybe?
Sure.
Yeah. Maybe, or even in the AnyPoint Studio is fine.
Yes.
Yeah, always the build. Yeah. So scroll down where the build tag starts. Yeah, so in build, where we have a build tag in there, there is an attribute called as final name. So what you can do is the final name by default, its value is your artifact ID hyphen version number. And that is why the default application generated is application name dash 1.00 dot zip. So what you can do is after build, add a element final name, and then override that parameter there. So the format or pattern of the build, the final name would be artifact ID hyphen version number hyphen. If you want to have a B word in there, then B, and then dollar in curly brace env dot build number.
And I also would like to add here, when you are building with Jenkins, so what you have here is just like a shell. So that means when Jenkins is triggered, oh, sorry, it's switching. Okay, when Jenkins is triggered, it's running like something like a terminal. So if you create like environment variables, so you can get it from there just to add it to the build number, or you can create more variables. You can get some credentials from some files or whatever you want to do. This is the power of Jenkins. It's like having a centralized terminal where you can build. So the same thing that I did from here to build, where's my that window? I missed that, but from the terminal when I build the application, so I can do it from Jenkins in the same flavor. I can generate whatever I want. I see another question. What is the exact parameter we need to pass in the Jenkins? This will help identifying the build.
So I just put something on the chat, a sample pattern which you can put inside the final name tag, where artifact and version are that comes from your POM. But when you run in Jenkins, Jenkins inject so many variables in there. For example, build number, or even it injects, if you are using the subversion, it also injects the revision number, which you can get as like in env.sem version, or if you are using Git, it does insert env.git commit or git branch. So all those variables are available to you, and you can just put and create your own unique name there.
I sent the variable name.
Oh, sorry, it's dollar bill number, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, how to create a Jenkins script for on-prem deployment and Cloudhub deployment. Ah, interesting. It depends. The configuration is slightly different. So when we look at the documentation for the Maven plugin, I'm opening it now. So this is the configuration um for ARM. Zooming in. So it's the same plugin with different parameters. So I don't know if we can reuse them and then maybe inject the deployment type from Jenkins. Do you know that, Manik?
Sorry, what was that?
So the question is how to create a Jenkins script for on-prem deployment and Cloud Hub deployment. So I assume that is using the same application that might be deployed to different targets depending on the job. So let's say we have a job to deploy to ARM and the other Jenkins job to deploy to Cloud Hub.
I haven't really tried, because if we have a Mule like Maven plugin in the POM, it's always a one configuration, and in one configuration, if we are specifying ARM, like executions, we can have a multiple executions, but configuration wise, it may be one. I mean, I haven't tried that.
Oh, I have James on triplet commenting that it's pretty different from for on-prem versus Cloud Hub. So the parameters required are not overlapping. Because the other thing that we can do is maybe using profiles, Maven profiles. Using profiles, we can build based on the profile, and we can have different segments to build the job depending on a parameter from the command line.
Yeah, I think you are right there. And what the one that Jamison says, yeah, the parameters for on-prem and Cloud Hub are different, but the deployment type attribute which defines what is your destination, whether ARM or standalone or Cloud Hub, I think that is only one parameter you can define. And for what Philip mentioned, that is, I think, maybe a good solution for it, because I know what we do for some of our deployments. We do have profiles which takes care of spatial packaging for applications. For example, some of our applications uses SAP as a dependency. So we do not include everything as, related to SAP in every POM. Rather, we have a profile in our parent POM, which is just, let's say, SAP. And if you want, you just enable that profile, and it then takes care of getting everything from your parent POM, dependencies, plugins required, and everything. So similarly, you can have probably multiple um, profiles in your parent and then use them for deployment.
So there's another question. Manik, if you can type the attribute associated with the build tag to get the unique zip file name.
Yeah, I'll just get that one. So I'm just building that one. So you put artifact ID and then version, and then okay. So I put something on the chat where what usually we do is we define a property in the pom.xml build number and default value is 0. The reason for that is when you are building application in your local, let's say in AnyPoint Studio, you may not have that environment variable build number available in there. So that might sometimes cause an issues. So define a property build number default value 0, and then in the final name under build, have this pattern $artifact ID, $version, and $build number. Now for local, when you build it in local, application name will be like GitHub API 1.0.0 0.zip. But when you are building same thing on the Jenkins, what you would do is as a where you are specifying your Maven goal, there you will pass in that as equal to dollar. So in Jenkins, where you specify the action to take the build, you will specify Maven clean package, and here you will pass the build number as a build parameter. So what it will do is when Jenkins run, Jenkins will inject the current build number, which is specified by $build number, into a -d build number variable. And since we have the property there, it will get overwritten, and your application zip that is generated will be GitHub API 1.0.0.0 dash, let's say if the build is 100, it will be -100. You can put any literal also behind that, which we usually like do -b and then $build number. Does that make sense? And finishing environment workers, worker type, Cloudhub. Yeah, Jameson, I think I get what you're saying, but I believe since I haven't tried the combining two different destinations into one palm, so I'm not really sure how that might work. Yeah.
Yes, last one from Jamie. We should use a snapshot for any builds into dev and potentially into staging, increment the fixed version at a minimum for any QA testing and production deploys. Yeah, I think that's right. Because otherwise, I mean, since we are adding features during development phases, we would have like a lot of versions deployed. So that's not like a good practice. So it's better to have the snapshots and just add changes as much as we can. And then once we are ready to deploy, we can really release the version and have the final version there.
Right. And to add to that, I think for that reason only using Maven release plugin on Jenkins is kind of important, because what it does for you is when you first time create a project, you would say, let's say your initial is 1.1.0.0 dash snapshot. So when you keep building your application in Jenkins, a regular build where like you don't do Maven release, it will always be a snapshot version. But using the Maven release plugin on the Jenkins, when you do actually a Maven release, at that point the Jenkins asks you like, okay, what will be your concrete version and what should be the next snapshot version. So if you say my next version is 1.0.0 and my next snapshot is 1.0.1 dash snapshot, then as a part of that whole release cycle, Jenkins and Maven will take care of bumping up your release version to 1.00 and then tag your source code and also have the next development version to be 1.0.1 dash snapshot. So all that snapshot and releases will be well taken care by Maven release plugin. So Jamison, yeah, that is absolutely right way to do it. And for that point, even the snapshot versions should only be in the stage or the development environment. Every time you promote your application to QA or UAT or whatever your test environment is, it should be always a released concrete version, not the snapshot version.
And something I talked to Manik yesterday, and it's also very important, is that everything is in a case by case basis. So what works for one might not work for other.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and one point I would like to touch back for the parent POM. I remember during your presentation you did mention about parent POM approach somewhere on Git. I don't on Twitter. I don't know. I think I tweeted that in the morning. Probably you read that tweet. That was my tweet. So what I would definitely suggest is if you are if you are developing Mule applications, you should try to have a core POM because when you start developing Mule applications, definitely you will be have 5, 10, 20 Mule applications, and that number will slowly keep increasing. So you don't want to keep doing the same configuration into every Mule application. And eventually what might happen is like your first 5 applications are are having different version numbers or different way of configuring thing compared to the next 5 applications, so you might have inconsistencies between the applications. So for that reason what you should do is you should create a core POM, parent POM, where you define all your common dependencies and their versions, including the plugins that you would use with their versions. Then in your child POM, you just define the dependencies, not the versions, not the common plugins. So what that does is, first thing, all your applications and POMs will be consistent throughout. They will have a same version numbers, they will have similar plugin usage, and then your child POMs will be really small. They won't be like a giant for 100 or 200 or long way. So you should really explore on how you can use the parent POMs and simplify your applications. Uh, yeah, I think I did add that here. Neetu, if you scroll up a little bit, I did put the properties and the final name, artifact ID, dollar version, build number. Is that what you're looking for? So for build number is what should be going in like build. So that is what should be in the POM file. I just assume there you don't have any plugin configuration. That is why inside the build tag, you only see one tag, final name. But in reality, you will have more plugin configuration inside the build. But there should, inside build, there should be a one tag element, final name, and you can have the configuration I just put on the chat. Yeah, parent POM is important. I mean, you will realize the benefit of using parent POM when your number of applications starts getting like crazy, 10, 20, 25, and then you start seeing, oh, I am using a different version here and different version there, and one version is giving issue, another version is not giving issues. So that really helps. So any more questions? I think we are past of our time. So any more questions anybody have? Philip, you have anything to add more?
No, I think I'm good.
Then you spend 2 days going back. That is true. I have seen worst. I have seen worst. 2 days are fine. I have seen like worse things when there's huge inconsistencies in the environment and you really don't know what is happening. So it's always better to start it early and have parent pom with some structure to it. Because the problem with that approach, where after 10 applications, if you start to synchronize your poms, now the problem is your first 5 applications use version XYZ, and now next 5 needs version ABC. Now which one you should use? So again, you have to put efforts in choosing one version, then making sure all your 10 applications are good with that version, there are no other issues or anything else. So longer you wait, more efforts you will have to spend in making everything standard way. Yeah, you are right, Jamison, there. Okay, so I think we are already over time. If nobody has any question, I would like to thank Philip for this awesome presentation and a demo to us, and we did had good questions and so many concepts. So even if you have any more questions, just feel free to send it over Twitter, or you can email me through the portal. Also, you can contact organizer and send your questions, and we will get back to you whenever by the same way or anyways. So that should be it. Anything, Philip, you have?
No, just need to say thank you for attending. Really had a great time just discussing these topics. They are very interesting.
Okay. Thank you very much. And those who missed, I will send out an recording link to everybody after this one. So you can always go back and see the recording. Thank you for joining us. Good night. For some people, it may be a good morning. So good morning, good night, good evening, good afternoon, everything. Have a good time ahead. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jamison Connect in May. Most of us maybe in the Connect. So we will touch back there.
Cool.
Thank you, guys. See ya.
See ya.
Yep.